5 years after the outbreak, New York City is a canyon of empty steel and silent streets. The immense infrastructure of the island remains perfectly intact, but the population has entirely vanished. This diagram shows the brutal mathematics of the 2012 virus. When the pathogen hit the global population, it carried a strict 90% mortality rate. 9 out of every 10 people died almost immediately. Of the 10% that survived, 9% mutated into highly aggressive nocturnal predators that suffer severe burns in ultraviolet light. That left less than 1% of humanity with a natural genetic immunity to the airborne virus. Military scientist Will Neville falls into that microscopic fraction, and he operates with absolute freedom. He spends his afternoons hunting deer at high speeds through the ruined metropolis in a blue Ford Mustang. Will survives by precise calculation. By isolating the biological weaknesses of the infected and exploiting the empty city's resources, he has engineered himself to be the apex predator of this new ecosystem. His dominance requires a strict, unyielding routine. Every afternoon, he masks his scent by pouring pure alcohol on his front steps, and the moment the sun dips below the horizon, he seals his townhouse behind thick, locking steel plates. But the absolute isolation comes with a severe psychological toll. Will holds casual, one-sided conversations with plastic mannequins at the local video store and spends his middays broadcasting automated messages over an empty radio frequency. His entire existence revolves around capturing the infected to test an experimental gene therapy. Gene therapy is a medical technique that modifies the genetic instructions inside a patient's cells to treat or cure a disease. He uses the city as his personal laboratory, treating the mutants as simple biological test subjects. This extreme isolation and scientific arrogance create a fatal blind spot. Because Will views the infected purely as animalistic lab rats, he misses the evidence that they are actively evolving. The turning point occurs when Will sets a mechanical snare and successfully captures a young female infected. What he doesn't realize is that she is the chosen mate of the mutant society's alpha leader. The next day, Will discovers a terrifying anomaly in his perfectly ordered world. One of the mannequins he talks to has been deliberately moved out into the street, miles away from the video store. When Will steps out to investigate the mannequin, a hidden wire snaps around his ankle. The alpha has reverse-engineered Will's exact hunting methods, using the plastic figure as bait for an identical snare trap that leaves Will hanging upside down until dusk. The alpha leader has demonstrated the capacity for observation and planning, executing a military-grade ambush on the man who thought he was the only thinker left. The alpha waits in the shadows of an adjacent building. He calculates the exact trajectory of the setting sun, holding back his pack of infected hunting hounds until the last protective ultraviolet rays vanish from the street. Will's German shepherd, Sam, is the only link keeping him connected to his humanity. During the resulting ambush, Sam intercepts a mutant hound to protect Will, suffering a fatal bite in the process. Will rushes Sam back to his lab and administers the experimental serum, but the aggressive mutation takes hold. Will is forced to use his own hands to strangle his dog before the virus completely transforms her. The psychological break is immediate. Will abandons every rigid survival rule he spent years perfecting, driving his SUV directly to the shipping harbor in the middle of the night for a suicidal assault against the horde. The loss of his dog strips away his scientific objectivity. Without his companion, the methodical researcher disappears, and Will reverts to a primal, vengeance-driven state. Will's reckless assault nearly kills him, but he is suddenly pulled from the wreckage by Anna, a survivor who heard his radio broadcasts. She brings him home and reveals the existence of a secure northern colony, entirely shattering his belief that he is the last person alive. But the Alpha follows Anna's vehicle back to the townhouse. Instead of blindly rushing the walls, the horde methodically targets the perimeter, systematically destroying every external light source before advancing on the house. They tear through the steel plates and breach the reinforced basement lab. Will, Anna, and her child are forced into the corner, separated from the snarling Alpha and his vanguard by a single pane of reinforced glass. Behind them, the scientific reality of the lab shifts. The captured alpha female lying on the examination table begins to stabilize. The gene therapy has worked, and her mutated biology is actively reverting back to a human state. The alpha is physically breaking through the last defensive barrier exactly as the female's vitals stabilize, signaling the cure's completion. Will sees the butterfly tattoo on Anna's neck. This specific image connects back to his daughter's final moments, signaling that his work has reached its intended destination. He quickly draws a vial of blood from the cured female. This blood is rich in antibodies, protective proteins produced by the immune system to neutralize threats like viruses. He hands the vial to Anna and seals her safely inside a reinforced subterranean escape chute. As the alpha finally shatters the heavy glass and charges forward, Will pulls the pin on a live hand grenade and sprints directly into the center of the vanguard. Will's death ensures the stabilized serum leaves the city, effectively turning the tide against the virus and closing out the era of the apex predator.